Can I get a roll call, please?
Councilman Henry?
Yes.
Councilman Gonzalez?
Yes.
Councilman Monty?
Yes.
Councilman Vidal?
Yes.
Councilman Bartolome?
Yes.
At this time, I'd like to open the meeting to the public. Does anyone from the public wish to speak? Ma'am? Come up and give your name and address. Face looks familiar? Okay.
606 on 67. I had a question on your resolution. Sorry. Resolution 2015-037, which is the resolution allowing IPARK, I don't even know if it's allowing, confirming that IPARK has transferred their property where the affordable housing was supposed to be as part of IPARK to 45 River Road Associates LLC, and the resolution indicates that the only person involved in that particular project is Fred Dives. I don't believe that it's legal for a company to after their development has been completed, to transfer their obligation to another entity. With that having been said, there are many questions I have on this. First of all, I don't see any indication that the units, I believe they call for 70 units, is the actual number that IPARK has to produce. As a matter of fact, when they received the approvals for 100 more units, I don't believe the COA calculation was ever redone. But Mr. Kaufman, who represented IPARK at a meeting in 2013, indicated that IPARK would provide whatever number of units were required. I don't see any confirmation that that is the number of units required. I don't see any confirmation that 45 River Road Associates will honor if there's additional units that have to be added to it. I don't see any of that on this. I also do not see, well, I said this, that the obligation of these affordable housing units will actually be on site. And I believe that that was part of the redevelopment agreement, that they be on site as opposed to, I also don't understand in terms of the COA requirements, why the affordable housing was not built according to the law. So much of it has to be built as the development is developed and built, and that was never done because there's absolutely nothing and no affordable units that sit on that property. I know certain members of this council do not want to have the affordable on that site, that they feel that that site is worth more than that, and that basically the discussion was that probably affordable housing people shouldn't be put on a site that has a view of New York. That was a discussion previously. So I wanted to know that all those things are in place. I don't believe that you can pass this resolution. You already passed a resolution in the past transferring the COA units from the St. Moritz to another site on Breland. I don't know if it was Breland or Lynchburg, whichever one of the projects that Mr. Dives had. And the mayor and council kind of looked like they had egg on their face when COA denied that. I don't see anything in writing saying that COA has approved this transfer. And I think that you're premature to pass a resolution like that without any of those parameters and things. And so I'm sure Mr. Marinello knows the law as to whether they can transfer this or not. And I don't even know if IPARK has even made their contributions to the COA fund for the commercial properties that sit on that property. in addition to the actual code units that is required for them to be put there. I don't see any of that attached to any of this, why this should be going forward at this time, because it's not there. I also wonder how you can, with all conscience, transfer the units to an entity that is owned solely by Mr. Dives when this mayor and council has a federal lawsuit against him. It certainly seems that flies in the face of somebody that you really want to deal with at this time, even if it is for COA, not for contamination. Which leads me to one other thing. I had asked in the past, no one said yes or no because nobody talks, but that we get every meeting a summary as to what has been spent from the 13 million bond for the use of the cleanup for Veterans Field, and I've never seen any of that. Rather than have to bother Ms. O'Connor with, Mrs. O'Connor, sorry, with Oprah requests for all that information, if we could get a summary every week, and not every week, but every once a month, as to what actually has been spent, what we have left. And it would be nice to also get a progress report on the lawsuits. I mean, I know things are enclosed, but nobody even mentioned that now there's a third-party complaint that Neglia is now included in the lawsuit, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. None of that was ever made public. And I think those are important things to the public that cares about these things. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Duly noted, Mayor. Thank you. Does anybody else from the public need to be, want to say anything? Sir?
Dennis Gallagher, 18 Arlington.
Please step up.
Dennis Gallagher at 18 Arlington Terrace.
Excuse me, 18.
Arlington Terrace.
I grew up on Arlington Terrace. That's why I thought I heard that. Okay, very good. Okay.
About a year ago, I requested that we get our proceedings here forecast. Mr. Henwood promised me that it would be taken care of. It's about a year ago. I'm wondering how we do. A year seems like an extraordinary length of time to take. Meantime, we're not very well informed here. There's a dearth of information on us for scratching here. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Does anyone else in the public wish to be heard? Here.
Peter DePaul, 606 Undercliff Avenue. Apologize, Mr. Franz and the council. Has the remediation company been keeping records and passing them on to you so the public can see them? And we'd like them again to be brought to the council meetings so we can know how much contamination, what kind of contamination at the ball field is being found and where is it being taken to. The gentleman from the remediation company said Indiana was one site, Pennsylvania, New Jersey. Where are these places? Very critical we keep on top of the pollution problem and how it's being handled. I see the bulldozers today had started to fill in near the ball field parking lot where the orange marking paper is put down. Will there be a map of this ball field where these hot spots are? So in the future we can retest when there's major storms or in a regular timely manner. Our town is in an old industrial area, and to be sure that sites are cleaned up properly should be a high priority. The old business as usual, businesses just out to make money. They're not out to protect us. When Mrs. Farrell last week, we talked about the cemetery. The same contamination that is in the ball field also fell over into the cemetery. Has that been investigated by DEP, looked at, evaluated? Is there records of that? Right, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Mayor, Lawrence, lucky you.
Name
Tom
and
Chansey, 611 Undercliff Avenue. Lawrence, I work in Lucky Union Post. I'm sure you do well. With one of your prior speakers, Mayor Hogan, I get a little confused because I know the history, to some extent, of the independent coalition, or so-called better Edgewater, or better known as IGB's, stance on affordable housing or color. Their position has always been, up until 2006, that any obligations that would contribute to their numbers of color should be done on site. For those longer-term members, you know that's true. Up until the point where we had a long-tenured investor in Edgewater, Jack Rosen, on a development complex from 1979 forward. He developed 39 units, of which his obligation was 3 units. And it carried the day, believe it or not, in resolution form by the Independent Coalition of Council Representatives to transfer off-site those 3 units or the obligation of that sole site to 15 Valley Place that one of their own members had an interest in, whether it be financial or family. All right? So in that, when they stress, come up before you express that point, I get terribly confused to a point of, it's really a point of hypocrisy. The other point is the color, in its format that I never agree with anyway, because there's no monetary obligation from the state. The state likes to mandate these obligations, even with court backing, but they don't give you the money to pay for educational costs. And when we had 40 affordable homes from Independence Harbor that was backed by $2.5 million in a performance bond to build 40, that was at that point in time specifically earmarked for our own people, Edgewater people. If we were going to build, we had a responsibility to our own people. And the first line of defense was for paid firemen, volunteer firemen, and a road department. So the young people would stay in town. Here we are, because we're a growth community, under this obligation, we can't even help our own people that lived here for years. But they're only concerned about numbers. The numbers have identification, people, that have educational costs resolved. They didn't like the builders remedy years ago, the IGBs, the same people that offered nothing as far as a solution to the problem, but just one of a critical nature. When they had the builder's remedy, they didn't like the contributions as an alternative to their actual investment for housing. And when we had the 40 affordable house, Ms. Hogan denied it. She traded in at $2.5 million we had to build it for $650,000. That paved the way for diabetes of all people. Diabetes, property that exists today in his yard. That's his yard. She paved the way for Gene Helen to sell it. So I don't understand where she's coming from. She must think people forget. Thank you.
Anyone else from the public like to be heard? Ma'am? Name and address?
Good evening, Shelby Thompson, 385 Undercliff Avenue. In addition to what Mr. Gallagher had said, there are a lot of members in the community who are unable to attend the council meetings, and I know would like to have to participate in what's going on with the town. So I think that any effort and progress towards getting the proceedings televised or somehow put online or something would be very helpful for many of the members of the community. And if we could be made aware of progress in regard to that, that would be great. Thank you.
Anyone else from the public wish to be heard? Valerie?
Valerie Bardina, 16 Hudson Terrace. Hello, Mayor. Welcome, Mr. Parkland. Dolores, I I would start out, like I usually say, hope we can work together, but I've given up on that because it's not worked in the past. Anyway, I have a question for the affordable housing resolution you have here regarding Hyde Park. I don't understand how you can legally transfer the obligation off, you know, to a Mr. Dives. First of all, it just boggles my mind that, you know, we have somebody who we're quote, suing because he dumps toxic contamination in our ball field where our children play, and now we want to give him the opportunity to build affordable housing. And, you know, speaking of affordable housing, the affordable housing that he built on Rearland site, or is building, or I don't know if it's even complete now, is on part of that contaminated site which was distributed into the park and potentially the cemetery. I just brought up my thing. I wanted to show you the pictures that I referred to at the last council meeting with the construction material. But let me get back to the point. That boggles my mind. And I know you, the majority of council people here have a relationship with Mr. Dives, a personal relationship. I know your children would call him uncle. And that really disturbs me. I want to know that my council people are elected to serve Democrats, Republicans, Independents, and all the people of Edgewater. I am a taxpayer. I deserve the same, you know, we just heard a very eloquent speech about civility, but I think it goes past civility. It goes to honesty. You know, can you detach yourself from your personal relationships to make the best decision for the residents of Edgewater? So far, I haven't seen that. You're looking now, and I'm sure you're going to vote later, on moving an obligation of affordable housing where, do you have a plan? You know, did you speak to Mr. Dives about this? Was there a meeting? Because really, before it appeared on a resolution a few meetings ago, I attend every meeting practically, and I haven't heard a public discussion about that at all. There's a lot of the people's business done behind closed doors, and I have a real problem with that. That's my problem with the affordable housing and that resolution. My other question is there contamination on the cemetery located in Edgewater? Has testing confirmed that has testing been done, and is it contaminated? I have pictures and I have emails sent from Mike Trachtenberg to Mr. Franz in 2010 talking about debris, construction material being thrown over into the cemetery. I have pictures, I'd be happy to show you, of the debris from the Rearland building. At the last meeting in December, the historic committee came. They talked about, you know, cleaning it up and making it pretty. And Mr. Henwood, Councilman Henwood, talked about having the DPW go in and do the necessary work. Well, if there's contamination there, we shouldn't have our DPW workers going in there. And if there is contamination, there should be an investigation to find out where it came from and where these materials were, and who's responsible for making it right. Maybe you should do that before you vote on this resolution. You already paid Mr. Dives $500,000 to build affordable housing on the Rearland site. I don't get this. I don't get how people are really benefiting from some of these actions. When you introduced and voted on the resolution to remove the 3 units from St. Moritz to another location because Mr. Diabetes was selling the property, I still to this day can't, thank goodness COA stopped that, because I can't understand who in Edgewater would have benefited from that except Mr. Diabetes. Thank you.
Does anyone else wish to be heard from the public? Now, close the meeting. Oh, I'm sorry.
Katie Jones, 359 Undercliff Avenue. I'm just curious, we have a lot of development in town, a lot of these mansions being built, and we have them knocked down, we have them taken away, and I see trucks flying up and down Undercliff and River Road all the time. Where are they taking these houses to? And what mechanism do we have in place to know that they are disposing of these older homes properly? Because a lot of them are filled with lead and asbestos. And, you know, like your house that you just sold, that's probably got some issues because it's over 100 years old. Where do these houses go when they're knocked down and taken away? Does anybody know? Crickets? Does anybody know?
Do you know?
No, that's why I'm here, Mike, asking.
Well, I'm assuming that the contract.
No, it's not a rhetorical question. It's not a rhetorical question. I'm coming to the mayor and council who are supposed to run the town, who are supposed to know what's going on, who are supposed to know what mechanisms are in place to
I'm
keep
sure
us
they're in
healthy
place.
and safe.
Duly noted.
Okay, so
Duly noted.
where do they go?
Duly noted.
Where do they go? There's no answer? There's no answer to this. Oh, Brian taught you well.
Anyone else in the public want to be heard? If that, we'll close the meeting to the public. Okay, the next order of business. The approval of the minutes from the January 2nd, 2015 meeting. Do I have a motion to approve? Excuse me? So moved. Do I have, can I have a roll call?
Councilman Henwick.
Yes, second.
Councilman Moore. Councilman Monty.
Yes.
Councilman Vidal.
Yes.
Councilman Bartolomeo.
Yes.
Very good. Now we have communications. We have a letter from the PBA Local 45 in regards to their contract negotiations. I believe the borough clerk had a copy of that. It's been distributed to the council members, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Introduction of ordinances. Clerk, would you please read the ordinance? Yes. Excuse me. No, I don't believe so. I don't believe you want to, I really don't. She does not have to read that, okay? But introduction of the ordinance. Please, clerk, would you please read the ordinance?
Yes. Okay. An ordinance of the Borough of Edgewater, County of Bergen, State of New Jersey, fixing the salaries and compensation for certain officers, department heads, and white-collar employees, both full and part-time, beginning January 1st, 2014 through December 31st, 2014.
Do we have an introduction?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilman Monty. Sorry. Councilman Henwick.
Okay. So discussion, right?
No, I mean, unless you have any.
Okay. Yes.
Councilwoman Waller. Councilman Monty.
Yes.
Councilman Vidal.
Yes.
Councilman Bartolomeo.
Yes.
The motion passes. Okay, and it will be published, no,
When's the hearing?
the hearing date will be the next January, February 17th.
This will be heard at second hearing on the February, what meeting?
I think it's February 17th.
17th. The second reading, all persons who are interested may be heard at that time.
Okay, we're up to the, is there any committee or council liaison report?
Mr. Mayor, are we going to just confirm our procedure for open to the public that they ask the questions in 5 minutes, and if we can answer at the end of the session, we should. If we have answers, if not, we will get back to them. Are there any issues that we'll talk about tonight that we can answer? Or at some point for that?
I was going to comment on the resolution which was discussed regarding co-housing for the town.
Well, I mean,
Well, let's do that right now.
what I'm saying is, I'd say move forward, let's do that right after the
Yeah.
close, because then
Okay, all right, so let's open it up for discussion right now.
I mean, Dennis commented on televised, I think it was December, Greg, you reported on your progress with regard to closed circuit. All right, and that's been ongoing, has
Yeah,
been a
we're-
year.
we'll-
And I didn't promise TV, but you were working on closed circuit, I think you reported on the December meeting.
Yes.
Thank you. As far as, I would just say to Peter, you know, you're absolutely right. All that information is available, you can go over any of it. I mean, it's public information. You have a right to it. So, by all means,
On the marina.
testing, the results, the amount that's gone out, the locations we're dumping it at. I, quite frankly, am very proud of the progress that the committee, including borough professionals, Tom Quinton, the LSRP, the construction company, 3 council members, borough engineer, both old and new, weekly meetings, we're on schedule. It's a real good story. You know, at this point, it is a very good story moving forward, and it's all available, and I'm sure we'll schedule a report on next month.
Yeah, now, where can, on those reports that we get, like, where can the public go and get those reports? Right?
The question, if I may interrupt for a second, sir. You have to remember, this isn't litigation. And a lot of the questions that I heard tonight from the public are those which are the subject of the litigation. For example, some of the reports would be. A lot of them are the expert reports that your special attorney has made up in terms of the litigation. So I think there has to be some more specificity in those requests, and if they open them to the clerk, I will go over them with her and make sure the special counsel, Mr. Carson, has no problem with putting them to the public.
Thank you. Do you want to talk about the counselor's response to IPAR 037?
Well, that was, from my own knowledge, because I prepared that was originally a resolution that was prepared by Mr. Bozier in consultation with Mr. Kaufman, who represents IPAR. I then had a conference with Mr. Kaufman, who said that they were selling lot point 1.19 of that block. And that's the lot that specifically in the redevelopment plan is to have the housing. So in order to sell it, they have to put a deed restriction on that lot for those number of units as per the redevelopment plan. So it's not a question of transferring the lots from 1.19 block M to someplace else in town. It's a question, according to Mr. Kaufman and Mr. Bozier, it's a question of making sure that it's kept there. And that's where it stands at this point. That's all that resolution really says. It gives permission, excuse me, permission to transfer it with a deed restriction to the corporation of which Mr. Davies is the head of it. And it was Mr. Bozier's demand that Mr. Davies' name be in the resolution so everyone openly would know that's who the company is. Anyway, that's what it does.
Just to finish my report, I wanted to let everybody know that the United States Air Force Band is scheduled for the second Unity Center. We're going to feed them and the veterans, and maybe the veterans from the Veterans Home in the Legion next door, out back. Eddie's going to handle that. We'll have a resolution for that next month. I also want to let you know we found in Rusty Kale's basement of the pub a completely filled, got me $50 in here, memorial flag phone from Al Dolan. And I'd like to give it to the borough administrator, because this year we'll be flying a flag and we certainly could use the money. But I also thought we could hang on to a container, because it might be nice in our eventual museum, because it was quite an effort that he did, and it's quite a legacy. So we just found that, so I wanted to pass it on. And real quick, I apologize, I know it's a national championship game tonight, but I just found it interesting. Someone handed me just 2 days ago an article from the New York Times. And everybody's heard about this for years, at least I have. I always thought it was an urban myth, but it actually existed. It was an article from a writer in the New York Times in 1975 talking about Edgewater and the lack of sunshine and solar deprivation. But I thought it was very telling. And it's a long article, and I just highlighted a few, bear with me. Edgewater, living along the edge of the Hudson River, at the bottom of a sharp cliff poses certain physiological, physical, and sociological perils. physiological wounds daily for a while the late afternoon sun is still glittering upper Manhattan across the river. Dusk is already falling. I'll move on. From Edgewater. From Manhattan, Edgewater seems little but its wreck of a waterfront and its tenuous hold on the New Jersey side of the river is dwarfed by towering high-rises that dominate the New Jersey skyline, not being Edgewater at the time. Moving on, the intrusion has also been accomplished without the borough getting 1 cent of considerable rateable wealth that the buildings have generated for the communities on top. Moving on. But Edgewater is a